you're not going to be as good of a fighter if you're not hanging around those who've already beaten those battles and give you tips to get through it. And then at the same time, as you get older, you kind of your problems get bigger. The challenges you face are more consequential. And I feel like a lot of times you can get too focused on that sort of thing. And so then you lose sight of really the basic stuff. And that's where the younger guys can be really helpful. So it's the age range that's been really great. You know, there's a lot of kids, I'm older than them. And then there's people that are a lot older than me. And there's so much you can get from each of these people. You know, like you said, I've been in calls and I'll ask a question. I was like, that was a pretty good question. And then one of the youngest guys on the call will come up and just blow everyone's mind with a deep question and be like, okay, I'm learning from you now. And
Mhm.
it's just that diversity of thought that comes with different age ranges. And so
Mhm.
it's always great just to have all these different people thinking and talking together with their different ideas. It just makes everyone better.
It's so
Well, you
good.
know what's crazy is Matt and I were talking, right, about when we were in high school like 1,000 years ago.
Mm.
And you know what's crazy
Great.
is we had all these different groups, right? So it's like the heads, the preps, the jocks, the nerds. We all had words for our groups or whatever, but we didn't have these. We
Mm.
didn't have these cell phone things. So when we were at lunch sitting next to someone in a totally opposite group, I couldn't just disappear into a world where everybody agrees with me. So instead, what will happen is eventually, after eating whatever ham sandwich or whatever they had at lunch, you would talk and you would start talking about stuff that you wildly disagreed with. I mean, he may love, slasher rock, and I was more of like the erasure Depeche Mode kid, so like we don't match, but we're both sitting here. There was a lot of times, and we had nowhere to retreat to where there were a bunch of people that agreed with us, and so we would start talking, and over time, like I told the story the other day of the stoner who introduced me to Led Zeppelin, and man, I love Led Zeppelin, but I never would have been engaged with that had I not been able to kind of hang around with people that I never would have picked to hang around. Why?
Mhm.
Because, well, I had nowhere to go. And I think one of the things that's cool about Apogee is it exposes you to lots of different people, and we start seeing the value in lots of different people, because there's not
Mm.
one way to be free. There's not one way to be sovereign. There's not one way to be a man. There's as many ways to be a great man as there are men alive, right? And maybe as many men who've ever lived and who will ever live. But it's
Yeah.
about finding that great man in you. And I love that about this program is we honor each man's journey, right? There are, yeah, of course, there's going to be similar steps taken. And at the same time, the worst thing that we could possibly do, no matter how great a guy Matt Beaudreau is, if Malachi Smith comes out as Matt Beaudreau Jr., right, that would be terrible. In fact, if Loudon Beaudreau comes out exactly like Matt, that also would be terrible, right? we,
Smart. Yeah.
we're about creating that man, how he wants to create, not in the
100%.
image of something we see of like, oh, be like this.